Today's topic is
designing a character from start to finish.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to Waypan. I'm Cal.
I'm Sunny, and we have
Fabrice
and Matthew.
Yes, and they're from Roliste TV. Did I say it right? Did I say it right with the French?
Yes.
Yay!
All right, and we're designing a character from start to finish. Now, before we begin, we got you to send us character descriptions, but for us to begin, what I would actually like you guys to do is start off and describe yourselves.
Do you start, Fabrice?
Maybe. So I'm Fabrice. I'm part of the Roliste TV channel as one of the many members. I'm also a 3D character modeler and sculptor that working for 3D printing. I believe some people on your channel know what I speak of.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm Belgium. So that's it for me.
Mm-hmm.
For my part, I'm French from Normandy, and I'm also member of Roliste TV, which is a very, very popular podcast in France about tabletop role-playing games.
Okay, great. So here's what I want to do. Now, I studied psychology. If you listen deeply to people, you will actually learn a lot about them. Fabrice, for example, you talked about your connection to Release TV first, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so you go, this is something that I value highly. I really connect myself with this. You also talked about your 3D modeling skills. So you're obviously proud of this. And these are the sorts of things that you can pick up just by listening to someone, right? And Matthew, you had that connection to your country, to France, because you obviously must have some pride with that, because that's the first thing you said about yourself. And see, just with how you order things, with how you say things, you can get a lot of information about a person if you just listen deeply.
I have to say that because I noticed that Fabrice did not talk about he was from Belgium, so I said, okay.
He did as his very last point.
Here's
Yes,
his
but
last
so
point,
this is
yeah.
what I mean, sorry. I went with the French notion as soon as I could because he did not do it.
All right.
It's all right. But what we want to do is we would like to break down your characters
Mhm.
and talk about how you make a character from start to finish. And obviously, we're looking at this from an artistic perspective because that's who we are. So shall we start off with the first character that we've got here? Now, this is your character, Fabrice, the first one.
Yes,
Would
indeed.
you like to read out her description?
I believe my English is what I qualify to potato, so maybe let's have the description be narrated by Sunny that have a really beautiful voice.
Sure.
All right. A thin, tanned girl wearing red silk, made for travel under the harsh desert condition. Always neat and tidy, making sure her golden jewelry is perfectly polished. Long, fiery hair dressed as a simple ponytail. Wearing a shaper light blade on her left side, she likes to travel light, but still be prepared for the basics of survival. Her sandals have known better days, but why throw away a perfectly functional item? She is currently traveling and adventuring to accomplish her tribe initiative journey that every member needs to do. To accomplish her goals, she needs to find a piece of forgotten knowledge that the tribute didn't already know. This task can last several centuries.
There's a bit more.
Oh, yes. She likes to dance around the campfire once the night has come. She is still very curious about discovering other cultures, and sometimes her lack of common sense makes for trouble and hilarious situations. She has the bad habit of biting her lips when she casts a spell and touching her lips when she lies.
Okay. So, this is a very interesting character, but what we do when you're doing this, the first thing that you want to do is you want to look at actionable items. So there's a lot there in the description, but she's currently traveling and adventuring to accomplish her initiation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But
Yes.
that right, you cannot present that visually.
Yes, unless you were showing it in a storyboard form,
Yeah,
you would not be like, unless you show the environment and
as a
story.
singular image, you
Yeah,
cannot.
you would not be
Right.
able to showcase that.
Right. She's still very curious about discovering other cultures, right? Now you can show curiosity with a facial expression,
Or a
but
pose.
beyond that, there's not a whole lot of things there. But when we took a look into her, we actually found quite a bit about her personality when you take a look at how she treats precious items versus how she treats common items. So she makes sure that her golden jewelry is perfectly polished. But when it comes to her sandals,
Whatever.
yeah,
But it also says something about how she feels about the jewelry.
mm,
It could also mean that there is sentimental value to the jewelry, and that's why she bothers to keep it clean.
so I'm just going to use the present here and we will share screen. Okay, easiest way is I'll just click this. Oh, good Lord. Yes.
Is this correct?
Yep.
Alrighty.
But when we take a look here, we see with how we have imagined her, some of her other items will be a bit tattered because the way she is described, she doesn't take as much care of her non-precious items because that's how she's described to us.
Mm.
Now, I'll ask, is this how you intended to present her?
Yes and no. Not every item need to be really new and really polish, I would say, but our jewelry, yes. But really, the sandal is like an item that are running an usage, but the other part of its appearance is more important. I would say the tunic or the clothes are more important for her than just be ragged, I would say.
Would you say that this the clothing matches the description or the story that you were trying to tell of her?
At first, I was no, but now that you're explaining about everything else, I feel it's good.
Mm-hmm. So this is why we say when you present certain information, it's important to like rank order it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other part that is important is some of the times your descriptions will have unintended consequences. As we said, when we were looking at the description, we took a look and we saw, all right, there's the perfectly polished, and then that contrast so differently from the her sandals have seen better days. And so we take inference from that. And this is the thing you got to remember when you're presenting your character, like what you say matters much more than you may realize.
Yes, even though it's just a small bit of information.
And so that's one of the things that we wanted to do. So would you like to tell us where you think we haven't quite matched with the image, and would you like to tell us how you imagined her differently from the image we presented?
One thing maybe because I described her wearing red silk, I was thinking every part of the outfit will be red, and not just a part of it, and that the outfit will be well maintained, I would say. And just having one or two item be a little bit tattered. Like the bag is good because I was not really thinking about the bag, but seeing right here, I can see it matching the character or the usage, or it's just a bag. I don't really care. It's okay.
Right.
So, like with that, I think the way that you could present that a little bit better is talk about how she's dressed in finery, right? But the reason we chose your bag was because of this line here.
She likes to travel light, but still be prepared for the basics of survival.
And we combined that with your next.
Which is her sandals have known better days, but why throw away a perfectly functional item?
So that's why we came up with a more sort of tattered bag, because it's functional.
No, please continue. I think the thing was that when I read this description and I put those two lines together, she gave me the impression of someone who was practical.
Yeah.
Someone who was only had certain things that she cared about, like, for example, the jewelry. So that's why I think when I read the line, wearing red silk, made for travel under the harsh desertic condition, I am imagining a character who spends a lot of time in the desert. And if she's a practical person, she might not be dressed fully in red silk, but she might have it maybe over her head to protect herself from the heat. And I think that's why I presented her this way in the drawing.
Yeah, and I feel it makes totally sense to have her more like you represent her. It make her for more cohesive character like this. And just what I imagine it first is not like it's basically a draft, but it's a character that is more anchor in the world with your description or your representation with the white clothing.
All right. Well, how about we move on
To Matthew's character?
Yeah, all right. So we'll go over and we'll go to the description and I'll pull him up. All right.
Okay.
So
Shall I read it?
Before you read it, Matthew, what do you think of how we presented your character?
I like it a lot because at first, in my mind, I had I'm a big fan of the sword and sorcery cycle by Fritz Lieber, sword and the cycle of swords with Fafod and the Grey Mouser, and it was in my head thinking about Fafod, which was quite famous through the TSR covers of the Lankmar cycle. And I started from it visually, and then I added some elements, and really, perhaps, except for the long beard, which, as I told you, are not very convenient when you use your bow.
Oh no, it's not a beard. That's the ponytail.
Yeah, so see, it's
that's a ponytail. Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. He's only has a stubble, actually.
Only
stubble and a mustache.
Okay, good. So so I have absolutely no problem with this illustration.
Sorry, I guess I didn't draw it properly.
I thought that was because there's the just below the chin.
Yeah, I see.
I
I
thought
see
that
what
was
you're
some
saying.
sort of a string or something to attach the beard. This is what
rather than the separation of the face and the hair.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I think maybe then we should have added some hair over here so that
or like pushed it.
So
a bit
I have nothing to say.
Yeah,
I really love it.
Well, no, it's okay if you don't love it, because that's the thing that we want to focus on. How you present things
and how someone interprets it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, even if it's not visually what I had in mind, it's fully compatible with what I had in mind as a character.
So what we'll do is we'll do the exact same thing that we did before. So we'll go through and we'll have Sunny read out your description.
All right. So a tall ranger with a fur jacket and tight, ragged pants. He never wants to change it. He has only 4 fingers, 1 hand, and when he closes his cloak, somehow he manages to always show it to people around him. He has long, tied hair. His quiver also has marks on its leather, and the feathers on the arrow are in a bright green. He is a Robin Hood like figure, and some say his old quiver carries a history older than the realm itself. Though outgoing and often surrounded by people, others whisper that he is not entirely present with them. His wandering gaze betrays something he keeps for himself.
And so, uh, almost all of your description was actionable. So the things that weren't actionable was he never wants to change it. So you can't really show that a person is comfortable in their clothes or likes their choice of fashion. Whereas
The hit
there's
was for the jacket, and that was for the jacket that he never wanted to change.
mm, mm.
Ah,
So
okay.
but so he's outgoing and surrounded by people.
Mm.
That wasn't actionable until you added this part where it says others whisper that he's not entirely present with him. And now if we take a look at his look
Face.
right here, yeah, it doesn't look as if he's like with us in the picture, whereas the
Yeah.
lady feels entirely present.
Yeah, she is present in the moment in
I love
whatever
his
she is
gaze.
doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he looks like he's thinking about something, a
Yes.
bit aloof.
Mm.
And I wanted to convey the it's perhaps I'm a game master quite a lot, or perhaps too often.
Yeah, I know
I
that
wanted
feeling.
to leave some empty spaces for the game master to work from, meaning that he knows more than
What he
what.
lets on.
Yes, and especially with the quiver, there's this sort of there are constant things in his background. The old quiver, the fact that he never changes his jacket. So there are things from another time. And this is also why he looks, even if he's quite social, he's never that social, because these things from another time perhaps prevent him from being completely on the same level with other less knowing people.
Yeah. So I just wanted to talk with the two of you, and based off the images you've got, you said like they've fairly much fit, but there's some things which you think is a bit different. Imagine if you wanted to change these images, and then imagine how you would change them. That's where we've got to focus. So imagine you're going to change them to fit them perfectly, and that's what we want to present. So for example, Fabrice,
Yes.
when it comes to how her clothes are a bit ragged, you've got here in that first sentence, we have made made for travel under the harsh desert conditions. Now, when you think made for travel, things are not going to be as prim and proper.
Yes.
So, when you go to that, what you probably want to do is separate the, made for travel under harsh desert conditions. You might want to say she's appropriately dressed for the desert, but she has very, how would you describe it, Sonny?
She is what more she's more concerned about her silks
Or appearance, or
appearance.
maybe she's wearing beautiful clothing, this sort
Yes.
of thing.
Yeah.
And you go, please.
Because what of the character that I approximatively I was thinking about was Princess of Mars from
Ah, Princess of Mars.
Dija Thoris.
We're just looking it up right now.
Yep, I see what you're talking about. I've got one of the covers here. So yeah, and it's just by doing those little edits, and when it comes to, starting with that concept, remember, like, you could try telling it to another person. You could try putting it into one of the many different AIs out there when you're describing something, because they will not be in your head,
Yes.
and they will take the things that you say quite literally, and then,
Make their own inferences,
yeah,
and then they might come up with something that's completely different from what you thought, or close to what you thought.
So we think that that's really important. But so tell me, as a 3D artist, where would you go from here, Fabrice?
Mhm. For what exactly? To change it, to modulate,
Yeah,
to move
yeah.
it? Uh, I'm not sure, because the character here is maybe more have a better design that work with a D&D world, not just having a princess of Mars that adventure like a crazy person. You need to protect yourself.
Right. I
So
see.
the character work better for what you made with my description. If you really
Well,
think about it, and not just be, yeah, it's really epic. No. If you want more a low fantasy, it work better for this. But yeah, if I want to be more accurate with my description, I will basically remove the really protecting clause, and adding bit of sexy armor, I would say.
right, yes, because that's more like what the reference image that he was trying to go for. Yes, so I can totally understand that, but you can see that how you might have phrased certain things or given certain information has produced a completely different character from what you had in your
Yeah,
head.
exactly.
And that's why it is very important for us to rank and give certain other information, like how Matthew did, where, we can't tell what kind of person he is as a ranger until we see how other people see him. And that shows a different expression. It gives you more contextual clues. And that's something we're always talking about. How do you present contextual clues visually?
Which is very important when it comes to Matthew. So, Matthew, like, your first line wasn't nearly as helpful as you may have thought it originally, because he's a tall ranger. It wasn't until your second paragraph where you said he's a Robin Hood like figure,
Mm.
because ranger could mean any number of things, right?
Oh,
Like, there's all sorts of, like, Robin Hood and Aragon are similar, but they're still very, very different characters, right? And a park ranger is
yeah.
is still very different from them. And when you come to all of the different varieties of ranger, so I just wanted to go off and say one thing, which would be, I think, very bad, because I think you guys both presented good examples, right? One thing that I think would be very bad is, for example, if I said, "Oh, I am a male ranger, approximately 6 feet tall, and uh, I have all of the apparel that a ranger would need."
Yes, there are
You're like,
no descriptions
yeah,
at all. Like,
you're like,
how do you look?
See,
What's the color of your hair?
for the ranger, once again, I used Fafud
yeah,
as a model, and so he's very tall. And for the Robin Hood like figure, perhaps something got lost in in translation. It's
Mm,
really the not being Robin Hood, but being the person you can trust, and it's more about the representation of Robin Hood than his physical representation. This is what I
mm,
meant by that. So
yeah,
it could be interpreted both ways, but that was really is someone you can trust. Hence the fact that he hangs around with other people quite a lot.
mm. Interesting. Yeah, and so that's an important note to go on. So, so you were talking about Fafnir, right?
Fafnir, yes.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Fafnir. So taking a look at that, that's a literary reference. And when we take a look at Robin Hood, of course, he's a fictional character, semi-fictional, I guess. But there's all sorts of different Robin Hoods. So the like take for example, even within the same company, I believe was it Disney who made
The
Robin Hood Men in Pants?
Puss in Boots.
No, Men in Pants, I think it's called. Or
I don't know, Men in Pants.
oh, it's a very comedic version
Yeah, it
of
was
Robin
from
Hood.
Mel Brooks, if I'm
Yeah,
not mistaken. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
not sure it's Disney.
Oh, you're not sure it's Disney? I think it's. It might be Touchstone. I think it was. Anyway, long story short, even within that context of the context of film, right? You could have, for example, the Disney Fox Robin Hood, or you could
Yes.
have that Robin Hood. You could have a very serious Robin Hood.
But when I read Robin Hood, I thought of the classic Robin Hood, the one who stole from the rich and gave
to
back
the-
to the poor.
Yeah.
Yes,
And he
and
would always be in a cloak and, bow and arrow.
Mm,
yes, and this element can be found as well as an echo with the quiver being
Yes.
older than the realms,
Yes.
meaning that this character knows he has a purpose, and perhaps he's been given the quiver. Perhaps the quiver was the symbol of something else, of better days that were before.
mm, mm. And see, even taking a look at that, that's like very much your own interpretation, because some people look and they see the past as the worse, right?
Mhm.
They see the future as the better,
Mm.
and they think that the future will always lead to progress and that the past will always regress things.
Mm.
And they don't necessarily have that connection. So that's something that's very important to talk about. But since we have you as guests, tell us, what do you guys focus on when you're designing a character?
I guess for me, it will be the wow factor of the character. What is unique and what is appealing to the character I try to portray?
And to me is what can be guessed from him.
Right.
What are the gray areas, or the dark secrets, or the bright secrets? So like you don't judge a book by its cover. It's is he do you like it at first sight? Do you like him at first sight or hate him at first sight? And is it really a good impression or a false one? See, like in life, sometimes you meet people and you say, who are they? And then 1 month later, you just realize that they are great people, and you hang around, and it's how your 20-year-old friendship will begin. It's really that. I don't want to take anyone for granted. For instance, we had a show with Fabrice about D&D, and we mentioned the fact that it's too easy to guess a class character like a ranger or a mage, or it's too easy to guess. It's somehow they seem to be wearing uniforms, or like in Vampire the Masquerade, and this is something we try to go from, to stay away from.
Right. So for Matthew, it sounds like he prizes the mystery behind the character, that he wants people to get to know the character through little tidbits, like little crumbs. But for Fabrice, he wants to have a character that is memorable. So these are the two things
Show
that are
off.
important to them. What? Am I not right? Am I not right?
It's also perhaps because I'm always a game master. So when you're game master,
Yeah.
you want your players to be surprised, to be entertained, and not like, for instance, when I was very much younger, at one point I introduced an evil NPC, and what I did this gesture. I rubbed my hands, and when I started to talk as the NPC, I rubbed my hands, and then all the players around the table said, "He's the bad guy," and and that was not really on purpose. I did that, and from that point on, I just decided to blur the signs so they won't know.
But that's actually a good point that you've brought up. Just by simply rubbing your hands together, you have unintentionally created a clue to the rest of the players and given an impression of, yes, by doing that, you have given me the impression that he's the bad guy. And that has ruined the surprise, maybe.
Yeah, that ruined the surprise. And actually, I could not make a twist or something like that. So he was openly and officially, if I may say so, declared a bad guy quite early in the adventure, earlier than
Yeah.
unexpected. But I went this way because that was funny in many respects.
Right, yes. And I think this is a great example of how, when we talk about in our Design versus Law series, how certain things, the pose, when we discuss art section, how the pose, the lighting, the environment, the costume, the expression, all of these play a part in telling a story. Because I still go back to this example all the time, because when we did our Night Lords video, there was a lot of comments where people were very happy about how I saw Talos as the heroic figure when actually he is often seen as the bad guy.
Well, Night Lords, as a rule, are generally evil, villainous people.
Yes.
And there's a part in the story where he says, I just wanted to be a hero. And the way that the art was showing him,
He had a halo on around his head. He had a very sturdy pose with his sword, and these were contextual clues that were given by the artist to show how he might look very intimidating, he might look very scary, he might not look like someone you would approach, but just by adding those two elements, by showing a sturdy pose. Yeah, you just scrolled past it.
Oh, did I scroll past it?
One more up.
One more up.
Yeah, there he is.
Okay, yeah. So we'll just share this with you, and we'll show you how. So just click the share
screen.
Entire screen. There we go. And is it sharing? Great.
Yeah.
And we'll show you how that.
Yeah, I mean, imagine he did not have the halo, and he did not have the glowing sword, right?
Or the light coming down and the way
from
it's.
You would think that this guy is evil. He is so intimidating. Stay away from him. But because they have decided to make the head bright with that specific halo like look with the the starburst coming out, and you can see that they've put the attention on the sword because that part is also bright as compared to everything else. And so there's a symbolism showing that I prize my weapon. The weapon here is being used for good, especially with the shining gold and everything like that. And you see his expression and the way he's posed, he's at the ready. So it shows that the artist is trying to show us that he may look intimidating, but he has good intentions and he's a good person at heart, and he's actually trying to be the hero. And that's how we take away these visual clues, and that's how you apply those lessons to your own character design.
Yeah, and just on that, you take a look at how his eyes have an inner glow rather than just the simple lens that the Space Marines are known for. That shows that they have a drive within themselves. And this is what we're talking about when we're saying when you describe your character, when you do this, it's important to understand that you might be giving off more clues than you realize.
Yes, and I think the thing that most people when it comes to designing their characters, they do it very intuitively. But
Yeah.
until we explain to them, okay, when you take a look at this element, this is what it says. When you take a look at that, when you use this type of color, what does it say? We're helping them articulate what they already know in their heart and in their mind, but they just didn't realize it. But now we have given them the tools to articulate it visually by understanding and breaking down what the messaging is through visual context.
For example, when we did our video with you, we talked about how blue has very stable color psychology. I'm sure that neither of you were surprised, right?
No.
No, yeah, indeed.
Right. You know this stuff, right? But can you articulate that stuff? And that's the important part.
Yeah.
So you guys are role players. Tell us some of the areas where you've been able to articulate things and you think it's come through really well. And maybe if you wouldn't mind, tell us some of your own personal failures where you're like,
That
okay.
didn't turn out the way I wanted.
What do you mean by articulate?
Articulate means verbalize, able to tell the story, because some people might get the idea that blue is a stable color, but they're not able to say that.
They're not able to describe it accurately, how they feel. So to articulate something is to accurately describe something. Yeah.
And you want us to articulate, as you said, things from. Can you repeat your question?
Experience.
Yes.
Okay. So, throughout your time as a dungeon master or a player, tell us your moments where you think you've described something and people have instantly got it and like they've latched onto it and you're like, yes, I've done it. And conversely, moments where you've tried to describe something and it just completely floundered.
Oh, okay. Most of the time, not most of them, I always play as a game master with music on. And I have realized that having music on will be sometimes it will be more accurate than a description when I want to convey a mood. The fact that you have the music with you will help you a lot because you thought about a scene, you thought about a mood, so you have your own description ready. But when you picked up the music was picked up because you thought it was a perfect reflection of the mood or atmosphere you want to convey. So having music with you is some sort of a double layer, some sort of a net that in case you miss your description. I tend to, because I'm fond of paintings and painting. I tend to have in mind a famous painting if I want to describe something, and to verbalize, to articulate what I felt when I saw the painting for the first time. And especially when I want to have I'm thinking about Hopper, or I'm thinking about Norman Rockwell when I want to describe innocent scenes with kids, for instance. And these are the details, like a child smiling, or colors, the mixing of colors, or the lines with very clear lines separating colors. I try to think about it. So sometimes it works. Sometimes you have to repeat, and then they start to realize. But with time and experience, most of the time now, most of the time when I describe a scene, my players get it because we know each other.
Is there a time where you had something that you wanted to describe or set the scene, but your players didn't get it?
I'm trying to think about it, but sometimes it's happened because they didn't get my sentence because the music was too loud, or I botched the description, like I forgot to say something obvious, or sometimes with when you try to draw a map and the map of a location, and you are doing two things at the same time. So you are describing and drawing the map at the same time, and you forget to say something. But apart from that, uh, I don't have clear memories of me describe something and them thinking they are in spaceship.
Right, right. How about you, Fabrice? Do you have any experiences you'd like to share?
Yeah. Because I play a lot in type of sandbox games, I tend to let my player decide what he want to do or anything else. So I try to make my NPC really bright, or at least interesting. So I remember an example where I describe a red skinned tiefling in an area crowded of people. One of my players picked up the clue that was maybe someone he want to interact with and start a full narrative with this character. But sometimes I try to describe a in PC and in some sort of zone, and the player totally ignore it. So sometimes my description are really good to pick up the interest of my player, and sometimes I don't know, they just don't want to interact with the character I presented.
And why do you think that they might not have want to interact with the character?
Because the thing is, the character is evil, I think, or boring,
Right. Okay.
or they
Fair
want
enough.
trouble.
Yeah.
All right. So I'd say that when we talked to you, Fabrice, you were talking about potentially modeling these pictures.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what we'll probably try and do is we'll probably try and show these during the episode.
Yeah.
Tell me, like that's why I wanted to ask you about how you'd go about the modeling process, or what you would recommend to other people to go from character description to art to a
Production of the
yeah.
model.
Basically, because I sometimes try to, or I have commission work for people that want to make a mini of their character. I'll
Mhm.
always ask them, do you have a concept art, even a rough sketch, or describe me your character the best of your ability, because I cannot write mind. And
Yes,
Right.
yes,
sometimes,
exactly.
yeah, and sometimes what you concepting when you create the minis is not really what the people are thinking, or even
Exactly.
your ability to translate the rough sketch to something that is a finished product is sometimes a back and forth. The
Yeah.
best way to arrive to a conclusive finished product is to talk.
Yeah, no, I would agree, and I think that's pretty much the notes we talked about here. So let's say that they don't have access to an artist such as yourself, and they wanted to go to that production stage. What would you recommend?
Oh, you have some website especially for character players. That is Earforge, or I believe some website make the same thing, where you can concepting basically like a Sims like your character when you choose your race, your outfit, your equipment, and you can pose your character. Um,
Mhm, mhm.
and it's more easy. And I know people using this website just for the preview of the character and take a
Right.
screenshot and use it in the
Mm, mm,
representation
mm,
of the
mm.
character, basically.
Yeah. Um, I guess, is there any tips or tricks that you think are really important that people would miss on these character creation websites that you think is vitally important that they might miss out on?
I believe the choice, if we have a character that is really off norm, that is not really part of the mold, I would say, of every part of the character. For example, I believe some time ago, I had a commission about a warforge that was a magic sorcerer, and
Uh-huh.
what is working because the forge warforge is basically artificial creatures to infuse the magie on it. The dude was asking me to put dragon skill on part of the armor of the warforge to make the connection. So if you have this kind of character where you try to push it, the concept, and not be just the basic elf, the basic human, you maybe not really finding your happiness with those kind of website.
Right, because it's too nuanced in being, and they may not have the templates to create something
Yeah.
so customized
Yeah.
as compared to like a human form.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or you can try to kit bash it, but
Yeah.
it's require skills.
That's right.
And yeah, we're just looking at that character right now and seeing how you added those scales to him. I guess my final question for you guys is there anything that you think that we have left out? Anything that you guys think is very critical when designing a character that we maybe haven't talked about?
I think it's we're thinking about description, and when Fabrice started to talk, I thought that Fabrice is someone who plays remotely always, and when you tend to describe a character through a computer,
Yeah.
or when you describe a character around the table, you have other elements than the picture. Sometimes you'll give the picture before describing. Sometimes you will describe and then you'll give the picture and to the players, and that changes the perception of that character quite a lot. Plus, your body language when you describe, let's say, if you play a superhero role-playing games and you see the Hulk in front of you, you'll tend to box out and you'll say, and he's coming to you. This is something to be taken into account. That, for instance, when you play remotely, if your connection is not very good, you'll just send the picture, so you'll be
I
sure.
actually have a perfect example for you. This time when you were describing that, me and Suddy were nodding along, but you don't have that visual there. So like you can't know that we're nodding
Yeah,
not
you
along.
can't know that whether
So
or not we're understanding.
that's why
you.
we always try and go, yes, yes. Please go on.
But that's, I think, something to be taken into account. You were talking about description. I've got one. That was during the COVID years, and I played remotely. And then when COVID was done, I resumed my in situ gaming sessions. But I clearly remember I described a place they had entered, and I think that was a good description. And one of my players said, could you repeat, because I didn't get it, I could not hear it, the sound did not go through. And I was, I have to repeat it all over again. And on that very session, we had to shorten it because players had connection problems.
Yeah, no, definitely. There is a big difference between connecting in person and connecting online, and I think, like as we told you, me and Sunny met through a role playing game. And the difference between being together physically and being, a couple online, like it's like we met up obviously, and we're together now, but that separation, you've got to put, in my opinion, just 200-300% more effort into things online than you do physically, because if you don't get that connection, if you don't make that description right, people feel left out. They don't feel a part of it. And as you said, the way that you present, the way that you use your body, you make yourself bigger, make yourself smaller. And I'm used to years and years and years of DMing physically. And when I finally got to be a player, I was a player online. And I realized, just like with the nodding, as you said, there's things when you're only a voice that you've got to put so much more emphasis on, like tone, how much gravel you're going to add to your voice, or how meek you're going to make this person sound. All of these little things. There's all of these things that you must remember when you're presenting. Like, I don't know about you guys, but when I go into sort of storytelling mode, I'll tend to be lower and softer when I'm telling a story. And you got to pick up on these things, because when you are presenting your character, everything that you're doing in that moment, people will pick up on.
Yeah.
People are much more intuitive
And perceptive
than you might realize. Like with the blue, you guys may not have been able to say all of the character profiles of Blue's color psychology, but you certainly get it right off the bat.
Yeah. And if you thought of a lawful character and you were maybe going through a little slideshow in your brain of what colors would I use, blue would not be missed out on. It would be one of the colors that you might naturally pick. And why is that? It's because of these associations. And it creates that feeling within us that even we ourselves may not fully understand. And that's why we try to decipher it, so that we can make these informed decisions, deliberate decisions, to communicate visually what we are trying to say.
Because I'm sure that you, the person listening to this, has the ability to do that. It's just the difference is you have to be deliberate.
Yeah.
But with that, I think you guys have been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on. And where can we find you?
You can find us at Roliste TV, and we're on Facebook. We have 20,000 subscribers, and we're on
20,000 on
Facebook.
on Facebook and on
it's
YouTube as well.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
And we have also an X account, but we are perhaps moving out of it. Blue Sky, Threads, and we have no TikTok, Fabrice.
We have one that is not active right now. But we have a TikTok.
Okay.
Yeah,
what
we're very similar.
And we release videos, 4 to 5 videos a week, and we review
Quite a schedule.
games, and we also have guests as well, and live sessions. So yeah, it's quite a life. That won't last forever.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
And as always, keep those brushes wet. Bye-bye.
You're so in sync. That's fantastic.
Well, we practice.
We would like to thank Roliste TV so much for joining us for this collaboration.
And in particular, we'd like to thank Fabrice for the models that you see featured in this video.
We would also like to thank you so much for joining us in this episode and putting up with the unedited audio.
Yeah, since our interviewees were actually using video, we wanted to showcase that and did not want it to look like the Simpsons interview meme.
So once again, thank you so much for joining us because it means the world to us.
And if you'd like access to the models that Fabrice made, become a member.
All right, everyone, have a fantastic week.
All right, bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.